Good evening. Tonight I want to talk to you about grace. I spoke about maybe a month, 6 weeks ago about the world needing grace. Now I want to touch on another topic of grace. Grace I can talk about for days, weeks, months, years, and never run out of topics to mention in reference to the word grace. Grace, all it simply means is unmerited favor. It's when God gives you something you didn't earn, you didn't deserve, and you got it anyways. And that is what grace looks like. A couple weeks ago, I wrote my very first $1 million check. As I was writing it out, it felt really good. I had never written a $1 million check before. And I write it out, and I was telling a gentleman who's mentoring me, Dennis, this last week, he said, "Who would you write the check to?" I said, "It wrote to me." He's like, "I don't understand. What's the purpose? What's the point of writing a $1 million check to yourself?" And I'm a visual learner. I have to see something in my mind to be able to understand it, to make it make sense in my head. And with grace, it's a concept. It's a person of Jesus Christ, but it's an unfathomable concept in and of itself. And so I have to kind of analogize it. That's even a word. Make an analogy out of it for me to make it sense. And since what I do mostly day in and day out is deal with money, money is a good way to make an analogy. I'm not comparing money to grace by any means, because obviously they're incomparable. Grace is far superior in every way, shape, and form. But money is a way to help me to understand. You trade this for that, or you draw on this to get that. If I wrote a check for groceries, a down payment on a car, a down payment on a house, it makes sense. I'm trading what I have, money, for something I don't have yet. And with grace, it's not my account. This is God's account, and God's account is inexhaustible. I could draw millions of dollars off his account, and the grace would never even begin to dry up, wouldn't even begin to be hardly touched. The pool is so deep, and everyone on earth could draw on that grace, and every point they could rely on it, and still it would never exhaust itself. God's grace is inexhaustible, and that's the analogy of writing that check, was to help me remind me that, to me, $1 million, it's a lot of money, and it would wipe out most people if they could even possibly write the check. But God is just a drop in the bucket. I remember hearing a story years ago about a man sitting outside a building in a downtown, and he was begging, looking for someone to give him money, give him, something to get himself from this point to the next point in his life, which is tomorrow. Food, anything. He was always begging. One day, a gentleman walked out from that building he had his back against and said to the man, "Hi, my name is so-and-so, and I'm the manager of the bank where you're laying up against. And there's an account in here with your name on it that has $10 million on it." And the man looked at him and said, if I would had that kind of money, I'd be sitting out here begging, go away, leave me alone. What's wrong with you? Are you crazy? Get out of here. He threw the bank manager out of the conversation. He walked away. And a lot of times, that's what we look like. We have access to all of this grace that God wants to pour into our lives, and we just choose to live in spiritual poverty. We don't look to God to give us what we need for that moment. So I guess the question is, how deep is your grace pool, and how much grace do you have in your account? Have a good night.